Praises to our God, sing praises. Clap your hands, all you nations.
Wisdom.
The reading is from St. Paul's letter to the Galatians.
Let us be attentive.
Brethren, I would have you know that the gospel which was preached by me is not man's gospel. For I did not receive it from man, nor was I taught it, but it came through a revelation of Jesus Christ. For you have heard of my former life in Judaism, how I persecuted the church of God violently and tried to destroy it. And I advanced in Judaism beyond many of my own age among my people. So extremely zealous was I for the traditions of my fathers. But when he who had set me apart before I was born and had called me through his grace was pleased to reveal his Son to me, in order that I might preach him among the Gentiles, I did not I did not confer with flesh and blood, nor did I go up to Jerusalem to those who were apostles before me. But I went away into Arabia, and again I returned to Damascus. Then, after 3 years, I went up to Jerusalem to visit Cephas, and remained with him 15 days. But I saw none of the other apostles, except James, the Lord's brother.
Peace be unto you, the reader.
Alleluia. Alleluia. Alleluia.
Wisdom arise, let us hear the holy gospel. Peace be with all.
And with your spirit.
The reading is from the Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew. Let us be attentive.
Glory to you, O Lord. Glory to you.
When Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of King Herod, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is the one who was born King of the Jews? Indeed, we have seen his star in the east, and we have come to express worship toward him. When King Herod heard about this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Gathering together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he asked them where the Christ would be born. They replied, In Bethlehem of Judea, for this is written through the prophet, You, Bethlehem, land of Judah, are in no way least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you shall come forth a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. Then Herod privately called the wise men and learned from them exactly what time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, Go and search diligently for the young child, and when you've found him, bring me word, so that I also may come and worship him. After listening to the king, they continued on their journey, and behold, the star which they had seen in the east was going ahead of them until it came and stood over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with tremendous joy, and entering the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. Opening their treasures, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. But having been warned in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they returned to their own country, using another way. After the wise men had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, take the young child and his mother and flee to Egypt, and stay there until I tell you, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. So Joseph arose and took the young child and his mother by night, and they departed to Egypt, and they remained there until the death of Herod, so that what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet might be fulfilled. Out of Egypt I have called my son. When Herod saw that he had been outwitted by the wise men, he became extremely angry. He dispatched his men and killed all the male children who lived in Bethlehem and all the surrounding countryside, 2 years old and under, according to the exact time which he had learned from the wise men. And so what had been spoken by the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. A voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation, weeping, and great mourning. Rachel weeping for her children, and she would not be consoled because they were no more. But when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, and when he was in Egypt, saying, Arise, take the young child and his mother and return to the land of Israel. Those who were trying to kill the young child are dead." Joseph arose and took the young child and his mother, and they came into the land of Israel. However, when Joseph heard that Archelaus was ruling over Judea in the place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Being warned in a dream, he withdrew into the region of Galilee, and thus he arrived and lived in a city called Nazareth, so that what had been spoken to the prophets might be fulfilled. He will be called a Nazarene.
Glory to you, O Lord. Glory to you.
Christ is born.
Glory.
From the birth of Christ and the visit of the Magi, the church takes us the next Sunday to the slaughter of the innocents by Herod. The church commemorates, the Byzantine church commemorates 14,000 holy innocents, and the Coptic church 144,000, but neither of these figures would be realistic. They're definitely symbolic, because in the day of Christ, the estimates are there were probably 300 to 1,000 people in Bethlehem, and so maybe only a dozen or 2 dozen children. Even among the rest of the countryside, there'd be very few. We also know that Josephus, the historian of the Jews in that time, lists all of Herod's atrocities, but he never mentions the slaughter of the innocents, which he would have if this had been an event. So we have to ask ourselves why the church places this incredibly horrible martyrdom right after the joy of the birth of Christ. And also commemorates James, the brother of the Lord, who was thrown off the temple steps and murdered, who was considered one of the most just men in Israel. They called him Old Camel Knees because he was on his knees so often praying that he had thick calluses on his knees. We have David remembered and the struggles he went through. Remember, I told you that the word Bethlehem derives from the word lachem, which means leaven and hand-to-hand combat. So it's about struggle. So the Savior of Israel, whose name means struggle with God, is born in the house of struggle. So we see that the event that Paul spoke about that was not given to us by man, but came from above, it came from God, it came from a revelation. The whole event of Christianity is beyond human power, and it comes to us from above. This involves struggle right from the beginning. Can you imagine the struggle that Joseph and Mary went through? Having to leave there, they have to get out of Israel right after the child is born because of the danger he's in. And then they have to contend with this miracle so strange to them that's not fully understood throughout their life. When we look at what the struggle is, it's always the struggle between what is from above, what is from God, and what the world puts in place of God. So it's a struggle between the divine and politics. Because politics is about worldly power, and also about going to sleep in the comforts of life if we're able to get them. We struggle with both of these because both of these can eclipse the meaning and the presence of God in our life. We can ask ourselves, what happens if on a daily basis I am not involved in the struggle? I'm not watchful inside my soul, my heart. I don't pay attention to what I'm choosing, what I'm giving myself to. Joseph Stalin's mother was extremely devout from what is written, and he went to seminary as a young man in Georgia. He was thrown out of seminary I think 2 different seminaries, because of Marxist literature and political things that he was becoming involved in, which were against the church. When he assumed power, during the 5 years before the so-called Great Purge, in which he had executed 1 million people who didn't agree with him and who looked like they were a threat to his government, he sent out people to have a 5-year campaign to completely eliminate all religion in the Soviet Union. This was done by the Central Committee secretly, while on the surface, the Central Committee was saying, we're going to make it so no more churches will have their doors closed. So secretly, this political figure went from a household, we don't know what he lived with in that, but a Christian household, to something so destructive that it was one of the worst events in the history of the church, in which a king like Herod eliminated his enemies. Now, Herod was appointed king of the Jews in 40 BC by the Romans. They knew that he would be an ally for Rome, and they sent him to Rome with an army, a legion of the Roman army, to subdue Israel. And Herod went there, and he had 45 of the legitimate Hasmonean rulers of Israel executed, and he secured power. He also executed his brother-in-law, who was an 18-year-old priest at the time, because he feared that he would be chosen over him by Rome eventually. He executed his mother-in-law and his second wife. So when we have someone who does things like this, like Herod or like Stalin, it's pretty obvious to us. Something that is awful, and yet it prevails for a time. But it doesn't get like that way overnight. So in our souls, we have to look and see, what am I choosing? What am I following? Am I letting politics become God for me? Am I letting pleasures and comforts of the world put me to sleep? Or am I following the star, as the wise Magi did, to find an event that's beyond human making? This is the question I think that we have to ask ourselves. Am I really involved in the struggle to be a Christian? Or am I just following the world and the politics and calling it Christian? But it's meaningless, because I'm asleep and I'm going wherever I'm led, either by my passions or by the people in power. Christ alone is the way, the truth, and the life. And we have to develop the taste for this and be faithful to it on a daily basis in the smallest of ways, for before long, in a while, without realizing it, we will lose our way. And then when we're destroyed, it won't be just the destruction of our bodies, it's the destruction of our souls. So let us not let this happen, but let us try to stay awake and watch what we're choosing on a daily basis.